Hello, welcome to the Future of Learning. I'm Marina Bokas. The topic of digital citizenship is gaining momentum not only in the United States, but around the world. In general terms, digital citizenship is a concept to help teachers, technology leaders, and parents to understand what children should know to use technology appropriately. Yet, it is more than just a teaching tool. It is a way to prepare students for a society full of technology. Whether it's called digital citizenship, digital wellness, or digital ethics, the questions are all the same. How should we act when we are online, and what should be taught to the next generation about it? Today, we have an opportunity to have this conversation with Carrie James, the Principal Investigator at Project Zero, Harvard Graduate School of Education, and the author of Disconnected: Youth, New Media, and the Ethics Gap. Carrie, thank you so very much for being here today and for your time.
Thanks, Serena. It's great to be here.
You know, raising good citizens has always been important. However, it seems that in the digital era, the notion of citizenship expanded significantly. So when it comes to digital media, most parents and educators primarily concerned with know-how, student safety, and personal security. So why do you believe that ethics is just as, if more important than that?
It's a great question. And first, I want to underscore, I spent a lot of time talking about digital ethics being, a really important thing to emphasize. So the first thing I want to say is that it doesn't mean that personal safety is on the internet is not important. It's absolutely fundamentally important. As a parent myself who has children who enjoy spending time in online communities, I know that is something that we need to be attentive to. However, I think that our thinking about how young people and how we engage in these network publics can't just stop there. And the reason why is that through apps, social media, and different online communities, the things that we say and do play out in front of potentially very large audiences. So, the things that we say, sometimes they're meant to reach a large public, sometimes not, but in any case, they can be observed by individuals who are beyond our intended audiences. I think that's really important for young people and adults to be mindful of. So we have this audience factor. Beyond that, I think that there are other qualities of how we communicate digitally that are really different from face-to-face communication. And those qualities require us to pause and think about ethical questions. And I'm thinking about the sort of distance that the screen places between ourselves and other individuals, which makes it really easy to post content that might be hurtful or might be impulsive, unreflective. We have the dominance of text in communication online, which can lead to misinterpretation sometimes because you don't have the tone that you would have in a face-to-face conversation. So in short, I think living in this digitally enhanced world means that our words and deeds can have really far-reaching impact, and we need to be mindful of how our actions can affect others. But we also need to be mindful of how the internet can also allow us to do things to contribute to a greater good. So, some of the work that I'm doing currently on young civic actors is really looking at how young people are using these media for positive causes in the world. So we have to look at both sides of the issue.
All right, so it's obviously that it's a different type, the way we communicate online versus face-to-face. There's a lot of other, visual clues that comes with face-to-face communication than online generally missing as well. So what do you believe our students need to understand about the digital world in order to really thrive in it? In other words, what competences and dispositions matter most?
So I think that young people need to be conscious of and conscientious about how the photos that they post on Instagram, their tweets, their status updates, their comments can affect both themselves people who they know are their strong ties, the people that maybe their intended audiences, people who they don't know, those weak ties who may be acquaintances and individuals that their strong ties are connected to, but also the norms or integrity of larger communities. The things that we say and do online suggest what's fair game in different settings, and suggest, what's good and appropriate to do. So they need to be thinking about these different sort of layers of responsibility. So in line with this, we've done a lot of work with Common Sense Media, and we really supported the development of their digital literacy and citizenship curriculum. And they have this fantastic visual as part of their curriculum that's the rings of responsibility. And the center ring is, thinking about how the things that you say and do online are fulfilling a responsibility to protect yourself. And the next ring is the friends and family, those strong ties I mentioned before. And then the larger ring is a larger community of individuals whom we don't know so well. So the goal of that visual is really to develop a habit of mind to think about those layers of responsibility and really broaden one's universe of obligation when thinking about online choices. Go ahead, Irina.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say that you talk a lot about an ethics gaps when it comes to the digital world. That's what your book is focusing a lot on. And why do you believe that otherwise so many morally aware and empathetic teens fail to recognize moral and ethical choices, or dimensions, I guess, of their choices when they're online?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I completely agree that most youth are really morally aware, they're empathetic, they're caring individuals, and this is what we saw in the interviews we conducted with young people. Yet I think in certain situations, those moral values and concerns can fade into the background. And I think that, really what's at play here are a couple of things. One are some of those qualities of online communication I mentioned before, the fact that we have a screen, you can't see the other person who receives your post, but also it's the way we use those media, our habits of connectivity, especially the fast pace of texting and social media and app exchanges really work against the kind of reflection that helps young people and all of us be on the lookout for moral or ethical dilemmas or concerns that could come up.
Well, in relation to education then, do you think that education has to play a key role in addressing the digital ethics gap?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, it's one of the reasons why I've spent so much time thinking about the curriculum side, and I do a lot of professional development workshops with educators. Youth spend a lot of time in school, and they're a captive audience for better or for worse. So I think that schools are really valuable places for conversations about what it means to be a good citizen or member of any community, and that's offline and online. And I think educators can convene youth for conversations about managing their digital lives, not just in the sense of protecting themselves and being safe online, but also broadening their thinking, kind of pushing them in the direction of thinking of these other audiences and their general sense of responsibility. They can create occasions for young people to reflect on their responsibilities. Who do you feel responsible to in life in general? Who do you feel responsible to when you're posting on Instagram or on Snapchat, to really try to prime them for doing that moral and ethical thinking that's really important when they're engaging in networked publics.
Well, educators and parents certainly do realize that there are benefits for responsible use of social media, but many schools believe that they're already addressing ethical issues with students through the character education and other means. But do you believe it's enough? And also, from your perspective, what else can be done by teachers and parents to mentor students when it comes to digital dilemmas?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I definitely realize that many schools emphasize social responsibility and ethics. For many schools, those words themselves are part of the school mission. They're maybe on posters in the hallway, but I think there are also other kinds of messages that students are receiving that are competing for airtime with messages about responsibility. And I'm thinking about messages about achievement, about success, about getting into the right college, about from their peers, about status and popularity. So there's a lot going on in a young person's mind. And if we think about this really pressured climate, if we think about the messages about achievement, those really drive high rates of cheating, for example, in school, even among young people who really value honesty and integrity. In fact, a recent survey by some colleagues here at the Harvard Graduate School of Education who have a project called Making Caring Common, they did a recent survey of 10,000 middle and high school students and asked them what matters most, high individual achievement, happiness, or caring for others. And only 22% said caring for others, which suggests that, even though they're caring individuals, other values are trumping ethics and caring. So I think, so how might parents and teachers address this? I think that, like I was saying before, they're in a good position to create occasions for young people to reflect on their values, to make occasions where those values don't fade into the background, and for adults to really consider the messages they're conveying to youth and the balance of messages. Are they balancing messages about achievement with messages about caring, for example?
Do you think that distinction should be made between what's really ethical and moral? Because sometimes we do use it as one instead of the other, but I believe there is a subtle difference to it. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's a distinction that I make in my book, Disconnected. I talk about, sort of in line with some of the work that Howard Gardner has done, and he's written about in Five Minds for the Future and Truth, Beauty, and Goodness Reframed, a distinction between moral thinking being attentive to strong ties, the individuals whom you know and with whom you have close emotional connections, perhaps a history. So moral thinking is really thinking about what is my obligation to these individuals who I'm quite intimate with and have close connections with, and how can I honor that relationship? Whereas ethical thinking, and Howard often refers to this as the ethics of roles, is really putting a different hat on and thinking in a more of a disinterested way, thinking more abstractly about how my actions not just affect the people who I know and care about, but also a broader community. If I'm a professional, I need to think not just about the interests of the people around me, my colleagues, and my company, for example, and making profit, but also how the things that we put out there in the world can be used by individuals both in positive ways but also in harmful ways. So thinking ethically is sort of moving beyond the individuals whom are near and dear, and thinking about a larger community and thinking about how that community may be impacted by one's actions.
Well, it seems that schools today more focus on the moral aspects of choices towards the people that we know rather than to the greater good, I suppose. Well, okay, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, no, I think you're quite right, and online, and I think the difficult thing about online is that because we're often talking with individuals who are those strong ties, whom we know, but our words and our deeds also have this broader audience. So there's sort of a slide from moral to ethical in the online space.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time in this conversation.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Young people today need to leave schools with a grasp of the political, legal, and economic functions of the adult society, and also with the social and moral awareness. As each day society is becoming more digital, Mark Twain's words come to mind. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. It's something to consider.